I was folding laundry when my world tilted. A pink lipstick stain bloomed on the cuff of my husband's shirt, a color I have never owned. It wasn't just the mark, it was the perfume that trailed behind it, a bright, sugary scent that didn't belong to our home. I stood in our quiet bedroom holding that shirt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, listening to the dishwasher hum and wondering when exactly love had turned into a ledger I kept balancing by myself. For years I had been the provider of invisible things. I covered the difference when his business was slow. I picked up the veterinary bill for the dog he begged me to adopt. I paid for the new tires and the dental crown and the weekend away he needed to clear his head. I told myself that is what marriage is, tending to the seams so the fabric doesn't rip. I did not know the holes were already there. The night I decided to ask him, I prepared soup and set the table like it mattered. He walked in late with the same sugary perfume, clinging to his jacket. He kissed my cheek and said he was exhausted. When I asked how his day was, he said, "Too busy," and shoved his phone face down on the counter. I looked at that phone the way a sailor looks at a black cloud. I did not need proof, but proof arrived anyway. A receipt in his car for a boutique hotel. A text preview that flashed for a second, a pet name I had never heard. Suddenly, every kindness I had offered him sprouted a price tag I had been too tender to read. How many times had I been paying for my own erasure? I wish I could tell you I chose the high road immediately. I wish I could say I breathed, gathered my dignity and walked away. Instead, hurt burnt to ash inside me, and a terrible thought flickered, make him feel trapped the way he trapped you. It came quick and hot and stupid. Revenge is like that. It shows up dressed as relief. But even in my anger, I knew the line between a story you survive and a headline you regret is thin and dangerous. What I imagined first, the thing you clicked for, the stunt people whisper about, was not a plan. It was a flash. It was also reckless and could have harmed people. I will not teach it, I will not glamorize it, and I will not describe it. YouTube is not the place for that, and life is not a playground for injuries you cannot take back. What I will tell you is that pain makes you think you need fire. You don't, you need witnesses. So I chose a different kind of confrontation. I set boundaries that made my house mine again. I gathered bank statements and changed my online passwords. I moved our joint savings to a separate legal hold my attorney set up so bills could be paid but not quietly drained. I disabled location sharing. I asked my sister to stay the night, not because I was afraid of him, but because shame blooms in the dark and I needed light. When he texted that he'd be late again, my fingers trembled. I replied that I hoped he'd be safe and that tomorrow we would talk, with a counselor PR. Assent. He sent back a thumbs up, then nothing. The next morning, I booked an appointment with a licensed therapist, printed 3 months of transactions, and called an attorney my neighbor recommended. The attorney's office was calm, the kind of calm designed for storms. "You don't have to do anything today," she said. "You just have to know your options." We created a checklist: freeze new credit lines, document irregular charges, photograph receipts, keep a log of late nights and explanations. Not to win, but to be clear. That afternoon, the dog whined at the door. My husband's car pulled up, and he came in carrying flowers I didn't like and a grin he had not earned. He set the bouquet down and reached for me like we could pretend. I stepped back. "We're going to speak to someone," I said. "And tonight you're sleeping in the guest room." He laughed, then saw that I wasn't joking. "You're overreacting," he said. "The old me would have started softening the ground between us. The new me let the silence be a wall." A week later, truths that had been trickling started to rush. A hotel charge I hadn't noticed because it was buried between groceries and gas. A second phone plan opened in his name. A receipt for a massage that came with room service for 2. And then, like a match dropped in dry grass, a note in a pocket, her name, a heart, a date. When people say "I snapped," I think what they mean is the last thread finally broke. I felt that thread go. My mind offered me an old reckless thought again. teach him a lesson he will never forget. I almost listened. Instead, I called my therapist. Do something that keeps you safe and keeps you proud, she said. We can clean up messy later, but not catastrophic. I made tea. I wrote a speech. Not a scream, not a plea, a speech. Then I wrote a list. Move my essentials to a friend's house. Place a hold on our joint account and open a new one in my name. Change the locks with a professional present and a receipt. Enough. Orm the landlord, in writing about the temporary separation, create a safety plan with my sister and neighbor, just in case the talk got loud. This is where the story could have ended. A woman finds proof, refuses to be small, and leaves. But life isn't tidy, and humiliation has a way of trying to multiply itself. That weekend, I learned the other woman existed beyond perfume and text previews. I saw them together when his social media suggested a tag he forgot to hide. I saw a picture of them laughing in a bar we used to love. In the caption, she wrote a joke about it, glue. One of those winks meant to be private. It felt like a dare. I am not proud of what I thought next. I will not lie and say I didn't picture a prank that belongs in a cautionary tale. I pictured sirens and a room full of consequences. But listen to me. Real people end up at real hospitals because of the kind of ideas rage can invent. Firefighters are heroes, not props. Doctors have other emergencies. No view or viral. Moment is worth a human body in pain. Hurt people, and then everybody hurts. So I did not booby-trap anything. I staged the truth. I invited him to meet me in the living room. Me, my sister, our neighbor who used to be a nurse, and my phone recording for the record. I read the speech. I presented the receipts. I said the 3 sentences I wish every betrayed person could memorize. I know what's been happening. I am not responsible for your choices. This house is my safe place. He tried the classics, denial, jokes, blaming stress and me and bad luck. When that failed, he tried anger. "Oh, you're insane," he said. My neighbor, calm as winter, wrote down the time and the words. "But we can talk about feelings with a counselor," I said. But facts come first. I handed him the printed photos. He collapsed into the couch he never helped me pay for and put his face in his hands. I gave him options, counseling, and a separation agreement drawn by our attorney. Or he could leave that it and contact me through counsel only. He chose the third option I hadn't offered, storming out, slamming doors, and texting me threats he would later claim were just venting. My sister took screenshots. I called my attorney again. "You're doing everything right," she said. "Keep documenting, keep calm." 2 days later, a call lit up my screen, a number I didn't recognize, a woman I did. Her voice shook. "He told me you were separated," she said. "He told me you were fine with it." I could hear sirens in the background, real ones. She said they had tried something and funny, something and sticky, and now there were men in uniforms in her apartment, and everyone was mortified, and nobody was okay. She asked if I had done it. I told her the truth. I hadn't touched a thing. I would never. People can humiliate themselves without my help. I am not going to tell you what the firefighter saw. That's not my story to narrate, and it's not YouTube safe for humankind. What matters is this, cons. Aunty matters. Safety matters. Medical personnel are not punchlines, and sometimes a bad idea runs all the way to its own consequence without you lifting a finger. When my husband texted me from a quiet street afterward, "We need to talk," I did not respond. My attorney did, in writing, with the boundaries we had already set. We arranged a formal separation. We took inventory of assets and debts. I discovered accounts I didn't know about and debt I hadn't agreed to. I stopped being surprised. He tried to visit the house unannounced one evening, jangling the old key. The lock didn't turn. He knocked like the past owed him entry. I stood on the other side of the door with my phone ready, my neighbor on speaker, and my dog at my heel. "Please leave," I said through the door. He swore and left tire marks on the street like a child carving his name into wet cement. I won't pretend the next part was easy. Ending something you believed in feels like pushing a canoe away from the only dock you be ever known and hoping there's a shore out there somewhere. There were nights I almost called him, and mornings I hated my own spine for holding me up when I wanted to sink. That's when my sister would text me breakfast plans, when my neighbor would knock with muffins, when the dog would press his warm body against my leg like prayer. I met with the therapist every week. I stopped narrating his choices and started narrating mine. I learned the names of the things I had been living through: gaslighting, Darvo, intermittent reinforcement. I learned that love without safety is a cage with velvet bars. I learned I am allowed to want more than survival. The legal process ground forward: disclosures, signatures, hearings. There was a day in court where a judge looked at two people in their good clothes and tried to turn a war into paperwork. My attorney spoke calmly about timelines and accounts. His attorney tried to turn my boundaries into cruelty. The judge did not buy it. We divided check at needed dividing. We ended what needed ending. Then there was the work of building a new life out of old parts. I changed the bedroom curtains and moved the couch. I learned to cook for one without apologizing for leftovers. I kept the dog because the dog kept me. I started walking in the evenings and remembered what sky looks like when you're not watching a door. One afternoon, I passed our favorite bar, the one from the photo, and realized the neon sign did not hurt anymore. I went in. I ordered ginger ale. I sat at a small table and listened to strangers laugh about their ordinary days. It felt like a benediction to be nobody in a room where the music was too loud and everything was simple. Months later, a mutual friend told me he'd left the bar abruptly one night when a love song came on. The friend laughed when he told me, like people do when they want to prove they're not taking sides. I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. I felt something gentler than anger, sturdier than sadness. I felt free. Please hear this part clearly. There are choices I almost made that would have harmed people and harmed me. They live in the space between fantasy and felony, and no story is worth your soul. If you are hurting, pick the kind of revenge that is really a boundary. Document, disclose to a professional, tell the truth, leave safely. Make your life the consequence. Make your joy the lesson. Today, if you came to my house, you would find a paint-splattered drop cloth in the spare room and a half-finished canvas with yellow in the corners. You would find the dog asleep in a patch of sun and the good mugs clean and waiting because friends come over now for coffee and laughter that doesn't feel like a bargain. You would find a woman with a soft jaw and steady hands who knows what she is worth without anyone else's reflection. I do not know where he is on Tuesday nights or which excuses he uses when he is late. I do not know how often the other woman thinks about sirens. I know, lie that my door locks are new, and my future feels as if someone opened a window I forgot the house had. If you are living in a house where the air smells like lies, open a window. If you are holding a shirt that suddenly weighs 1,000 pounds, put it down. You do not have to be the seam that keeps a fabric from ripping when you are the only one who sews. What would you have done in my place? I want to know. Tell me in the comments. If this story helped you even a little, like the video and subscribe. There are more stories waiting, not about perfect people, but about people who choose themselves when the choices finally matter. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time.